This is a production of Cornell University.
I'm J. Robert Lennon from the English department and the creative writing program. I'm really excited to introduce Elissa Washuta to you guys today. A few things first. First of all, if you have a phone with you, and who doesn't, please put it into airplane mode for the duration of the reading. Also, I want to thank Barbara and David Zalaznick, who are the alumni who endowed this reading series. For the last decade, they've enabled us to bring an extraordinarily diverse and exciting bunch of writers, both well-known and up-and-coming, and this reading is part of that, so we're always grateful to them. And also thanks to the staff in the English department who made this all possible literally today, especially our chief logistician, Lynn Lauper, who's excellent with itineraries and makes it all run smoothly. Elissa's books are for sale and can be signed after the reading at the reception, which is another thing I need to tell you. There's a reception after the reading. First, when Elissa's finished reading, she'll take a few questions. I'm going to cut it off at exactly 5:45, and then I'm going to encourage everybody to go upstairs to the lounge where there's some snacks, and we can all chat about the reading or whatever, and you can meet Elissa and get your book signed, because you will, of course, be buying a book after you hear her read. The other thing I wanted to say is Elissa had told me earlier that she posted online a picture she took of this little tombstone that's at the corner of Tower Road and East Avenue, and it says Ostrander Elms. And I've been walking past it for a dozen years thinking that Ostrander Elms is buried right here on campus, but unfortunately it's not a dead person. I just looked it up. And there's a guy whose name was Ostrander who was instrumental in, I guess, planting trees on campus, and there were 2 Dutch elm trees that planted and then died of Dutch elm disease. So now there are 2 of these little tombstones that are commemorating the trees, not the man. And there's another one in the engineering quad, I think. So, anyway, okay, so I'm delighted to get to introduce Elissa Washuta to you today. Washuta's books include Starvation Mode and My Body is a Book of Rules, named a finalist for the Washington State Book Award. With Teresa Warburton, she is co-editor of the anthology Shapes of Native Nonfiction, collected essays by contemporary writers. White Magic, her forthcoming essay collection, won a 2019 Creative Capital Award. And her books, according to Creative Capital, is a quote, defy boundaries and definition of nonfiction narrative. Each work combines the author's personal struggles with mental illness, the emotional wounds caused by sexual violence, and the regulations she takes upon her body to create a powerful document of American womanhood in the modern age. A member of the Cowlitz Indian Tribe, Washuta has been active in the Seattle and Washington state literary scenes. She was the 2016 Fremont Bridge Writer-in-Residence, working from the Bridge Tower over the course of the summer to write a creative nonfiction history of the Puget Sound and Seattle's waterways, bridges, and spirits. She has received fellowships and awards from the NEA, Artist Trust, For Culture, Potlatch Fund, and Hugo House, RIP, but I guess it's coming back, I hope, and is now assistant professor of creative writing at Ohio State University. I want to add, I consider Elissa Washuta to be one of the most exciting nonfiction writers at work today. She's part of a new wave of women essayists who are leveraging the personal essay as a tool for analyzing culture. But there's something unique about Elissa's work. She explores, like no other writer I know, the porousness of boundaries between the mind and the body, the scientific and the magical, between art and life. Artworks and experiences that blur those boundaries are her stock and trade: suburban witches, magicians, violent traumas, the television show Twin Peaks. One of several obsessions we share is the Western-themed video game Red Dead Redemption 2, which offers the player a hyper-realistic open world to ride a horse around in, dozens of stagecoaches and banks to rob, hundreds of hours of interconnecting narratives to explore, and dozens of hucksters, confidence men, quacks, murderers, and magicians to talk to. In an essay about this game, Washuta writes, "In my real life, I've given up spells, given up on magic completely, really, because I'm tired of trying to control this life. If people could make this game an entire world of shops and garbage and roots and moonbeam mists, then I, a person, must have more power of design than I know." She's right, of course. A recurring theme in Washuta's work is that of the artist's ceaseless effort to transform suffering, her own and others, into something of beauty, to make new things out of the broken pieces of life. Her writing is a testament to the power of design, but also of salvage, of reparation and renewal. Reading an Elissa Washuta essay, you never forget that there's another world flowing just beneath the surface of the one you're inhabiting. It's almost too on the nose that she served as writer-in-residence on the Fremont Bridge. The lifeblood of Seattle passing underneath her, its wildlife and commerce and history. Listening to her today, I think you'll get to feel some of the same currents that she does, to gaze into the parallel world she likes to inhabit, to borrow a little bit of that sixth sense that makes her writing so powerful, so funny and sad, and yes, magical. Please join me in welcoming Elissa Washuta.
Thank you, John. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I'm really happy to be here today. So I'm going to read you 3 essays, and I'm not going to say a whole lot because I've got essays to read, and also have a very confusing mix of like Red Bull, coffee, and like mango juice flowing through me, and I don't want to say the wrong thing as a result of all those forces and potions. But, you know, I will say I'm just really happy to see you all. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm very just like really glad to have met so many wonderful people today, and I'm seeing people who mean so much to me, and thanks so much for this opportunity to visit. So again, I'm going to read 3 essays. The first one, I'm going to kind of go in order from oldest to newest. So what you should know about my work, the content warning, all of these essays have various things about sexual violence, mental illness, drinking, psychopharmaceuticals, and things like that. So do with that information what you will. So this first essay, all of these have been published and are available online. This first one is called Consumption. So I wrote this in 2015. I used to work as an academic counselor for American Indian Studies at University of Washington, and every single day I would read the Chronicle of Higher Education newsletter. And there was a special issue that year. What can colleges do about binge drinking? And I was like, good luck. Consumption. What can colleges do about binge drinking? Colleges can hold their students' hair back. A super nice college can be a pal and keep breath mints on hand. Colleges can take their turns at DD, or better yet, they can let the bars creep up to the edge of campus, bordering hedge and brick with their welcoming perfume of cola, bleach, and on Mondays, putrefaction. What can colleges do about binge drinking? They can do shots, but not until after the game is complete, the stadium emptied, the students hoarse from shouting as one united family, fuck the other team. Win or lose, if the rival is involved, the young ones will take to the streets, and when they really need to let out some steam, they'll find furniture to burn, glass panes to smash, cars to flip. Excellence is everywhere, in every superhuman lift of private property, in every defiant challenge of a cop on a horse. Colleges would do well to bring a flask or 2. These nights burn long. These games will be on the calendar many months in advance for ease of planning. What can colleges do about binge drinking? Plan more activities like bingo. Make human sexuality discussion sections actually involve copulation. Eliminate MLA citation style and eliminate that entrance exam that is notorious for dashing all hopes of having a job and a house and a child that you can dress up like a little rich person. Our blackout speckled binges are the neverland that keeps us from becoming the grown-ups who will make memories and stitch futures to our feet. We will vomit every dream into the gutter outside the 24-hour convenience store that sells the cigarettes whose smoke slips through our pink jellyfish lungs, never marking us because we have suspended ourselves in formaldehyde. What can colleges do about binge drinking? Colleges can watch their friend's glass while she goes to check her makeup. Colleges can turn their students onto their sides before turning off the lights so they might not go out like Jimmy, or maybe actually, on second thought, Google how not to choke on your own vomit, or is my friend going to die from alcohol poisoning? And if the search results say it's okay, colleges can leave her droopy body where it slumps, spit the sour night into the dorm sink, and push back out into the dark for more. They can shoot her a text in the morning to see whether she's all right. If she's not, colleges can say they did their best. They turned her on her side in everything, Googled how to wake up a dead girl, told her via email one time 3 years ago that consuming more than 4 drinks in 2 hours is considered binge drinking for females. What can colleges do about binge drinking? Drinking is so central to students' expectations of college that they might be new rumens to hold the swill they never dreamed they'd be able to put down. The 10th beer, the 15th, the pour through the funnel. Their throats widen with new gullets to usher in the upside-down torrent from the keg on the floor. Drinking is so fundamental to student life that a young man or woman may become slitted with gills so she might not drown. When their campus clinic charges show up with a pancreas inflamed, lungs lubed with blood, or midday liquor breath across the pharmacy counter, colleges can make a big thing of it if they're really trying to be magnets for drama. Or they can tell their students it's just gas from an oversized burrito, just a cold, or just part of growing up, and send everyone away with a selection from a rainbow of Xerox pamphlets on escaping college alive. They can make the student group with the keg of root beer on the lawn pour it out because it suggests problematic drinking behavior. What can colleges do about binge drinking? If they're going to be all uptight about it, colleges can open every beer can and pour the contents down the drain. They do it every now and then, swearing off the stuff, pretending it's the piss-light liquid that flunked those classes, that burned the couches, that smashed windows, that said that shitty thing they'll regret for a decade, that fucked that girl when she was so passed out her legs felt like they were corpse limbs. They're gonna be so much better. Still, when game day arrives, colleges are back at it, pre-gaming at 10 in the morning with a venti to-go cup of strong Irish coffee in their hand as they stumble through traffic toward the stadium for the tailgate. They can let it continue because it is all we know. The elixir we pour on our brains after unpacking them from their boxes in our lonely dorms. When we sign up for English 101 and bare our arms for our meningitis vaccines, we learn that this time is about finding ourselves, about freedom, about hard work, about football, about date rape, and about the procurement, concealment, and consumption of alcohol. When resident assistants toss rooms, they can't be confidants. When 100 riot cops, armed and shielded, storm the college town center and beat a student with a metal baton, how could we see the police as anything but the student body's enemy in war? When our parents open their car doors and release us into these new dominions where our leaders urge us to be hungry and thirsty, what can we do? I could do shots during mid-class breaks. I puked in the train station alone at night, puked on Pennsylvania Avenue, on Wisconsin Avenue, on Rhode Island Avenue. I consumed more alcohol calories than food calories. Months after graduation, I found myself on a couch with my skirt up, too wasted to do anything but try to talk the nearest stranger out of it when he decided to break into me. I folded hangovers into my weekly routine. I went to the ER for excruciating stomach pain and came out with a diagnosis of alcohol-induced gastritis. Before long, an astringent mix of alcohol and prescription psychopharmaceuticals saturated my tissues so fully that I had become allergic to everything, nutrient deficient, and so chronically dehydrated that even my eyeballs were evaporating. There was no tragic glamour, only slow rot. I turned toxic. I said and did things I regret and things I don't remember. College didn't mold me into the teenager who chased caffeine pills with cherry NyQuil. College didn't implant me with the terrifying, galloping want that made me suck down non-alcoholic beers at an off-campus bar while my fellow undergrads sipped their microbrews. Inside me somewhere, there was always a wound. Outside me somewhere, there was always a party to drown out its weeping. I just had to choose the site of my self-poisoning and break my fast. College didn't make me sick. College was the place where I learned to sidle up to a keg and call my despair community. Years after I began failing myself during those early days of chugging Smirnoff Ice and trying to hold my piss so I wouldn't break the seal, I decided I wanted to hear the full terror of my thoughts, the unbroken spool of dread back looping over every misstep, the forward-searching gaze that looks for threats ahead. To not put down 10 whiskey gingers is to practice nonviolence against my own thoughts. I cannot soften the grip on my neck that makes my tongue loll. But I can listen to the whisper and know that it has never been so mean that I should burn every living thing inside my skin. In college, I did not yet know that my thoughts, even the ugly ones, are worth hearing. I couldn't see that my future adulthood was worth growing up into. My instruction taught me that life was hard, but it could be worse. I could be pre-med. I learned that adults made the pain safe with a nightcap, an after-work brew, or enough screwdrivers to make the ceiling the floor and the floor the pillow. College was snapped in half when a boy brought his riot to my insides. We were both sober that night. I soon learned to douse that long, open lesion with drink. By graduation, there'd been a sparkler lit and snuffed inside my brain. When PsychMed's long tail effects failed to soothe me quickly enough, there was always what everyone else reached for first: drink. Drink. Drink! I asked it to soothe me. I asked it to unmake me. I asked it to disembowel me. When it fell short, I asked it to leave me. But there was no one to ask, because it was only fluid. And I was alone, ready to put my ear to my heart and listen for a beat. All right, that's that one. I don't know if I've ever told anyone this before, so I should tell a room full of people, right? But after I published that essay, I kept drinking. I thought I had quit drinking, and I didn't. And those were like a really hard few months of my life when I knew that I was dying. I should not keep drinking, and yet there it was. But I haven't had a drink in almost 4 years. So the next essay I'm going to read, fast way forward to, I think this one was published in the fall in Canadian Art. And I don't know what to say about it except an editor there reached out to me and they wanted an essay on the subject of climate change. And I was like, oh, I don't know anything about that, but yes, I will do it because you're offering to pay me and I like you and I like this publication. So here's my essay about climate change. The sun disappears. Men never send dick pics, only sunsets. The view from my balcony, they say. Texted gold and black horizons. Tinder photos of built glitter against mountains. A sunset is harder than a dick. Because what do you even say to that? Meteorologists say it's the particles that make the scarlet. Smoke from a burning forest, gaseous volcanic sulfur, engine soot, industrial gas. Light scatters, violet the most, red the least. Our earth wrecking makes the sky so good and grammable. But that's not how you respond to a man's sunset. You're supposed to say, beautiful, I'd love to see it sometime. The people of Instagram are making trips to photograph things before they're gone or before we're all dead, whichever comes first. We have to see the glacier because we're melting it. We have to see the eclipse before smog obscures the sun forever. I took a plane from Ohio to Tennessee and back in one day just to see the same sun and moon we have here at home. I would have driven out of my city to a place way beyond the light pollution to see the meteor shower last week, but I was afraid of that kind of dark. Outdoors dark, preferred by serial killers. So instead, I looked at astrology internet on my phone and tried to figure out whether I'll die alone. The apocalypse will happen during my lifetime if I can figure out how to live long enough. I want to be 100 in a good-looking flesh case. I've been smearing my skin with the secretions of snails, 24-karat gold flecks suspended in serum, iron dust from the Toluca meteorite. I dress my hair like Jezebel's as she waited at her window for Jehu. It has the luster of oil that traveled 7,000 miles. This won't end well. I know men, they hunted the sea mink for its pelt, laying traps, sniffing minks out with dogs, digging out mink homes with shovels and crowbars, smoking minks out of holes. Before they went extinct, the sea minks turned nocturnal, doing what they could in secret night, closing their curtains and extinguishing their lamps and not texting the men back. The weather here is so mean, it seems like someone might be mad at me. Half-boiling slicks of summer, deep freezes, blizzards, floods, tornadoes, all shifting so fast the air feels unsettled, like it might snap if I say the wrong thing. Inside the city, downpours weep into our basements. Outside the city, trees grow like panic attacks. God loves you, said a sign in the countryside the last time I drove 100 miles out. Somehow nothing satisfies like beef, said another. Nothing? That's right. Some things make a man hungrier. Some pelts are gateway pelts. Some eclipses are neat, but the eclipse chasers will tell you that if you really want to see a good one, no clouds, no light pollution, totality, you need to fly halfway around the world. When I got to where I was going out in the country, the ground was covered in snow. In mid-April, a couple days after it hit 70. Climate change, we all said. And I realized I've never really thought about that. Couldn't tell you exactly what it means, having read maybe 2 articles about climate change and 3,000 about the astrology of romantic compatibility, because I'm going to die long before we end the world. In a bed, probably, by a man. They've shown me they can end me with their breath-stopping hands and flicking knives. But I've been thinking lately, maybe I do want to die with my friends in the mass extinction that follows the full melt. I'll be a good survivor. My body can learn to do anything. Once, a man asked me up to see his view. I lived across the street, so mine was nearly the same. But I did go up. We sat on the balcony, and he said, "Now I'm going to tell you all the things I'm going to do to you." He was right. His view was so much different from mine. His apartment was higher up than the window Jehu had Jezebel thrown from before horse-stomping her corpse into spreadable pulp. This man was the only person on earth who knew my whereabouts. The sun had already set, so I just had to take his word for it when he told me the sunsets were so good, unbelievable. But he didn't say to die for, because that's not the kind of thing a man like that says out loud. All right, that one's done. I got to work on my transitions, but when they're done, so. Okay, I'm going to read a longer one now. It's not that long, but it's longer. If I can open it. So this one, the other two are standalone essays. I don't think they'll ever be in books, but this one is going to be the first chapter for my book, White Magic. Wrote this one in the fall when I was having a very hard time. You know, I keep thinking I'm getting better, and I am getting better, but you know, I've got PTSD. It's pretty bad, and sometimes the world just gets to me, you know, and I start remembering I'm not super safe here. So I don't think there's anything else you need to know about that. It's the beginning of a book, so it should invite you right in, right? White Witchery. Some girl at school once had a mood ring. We were quiet about it, the way we were quiet about the rolled waistbands of our uniform skirts, which we concealed with the loose overhangs of tucked-in polos. Both were kinds of witchcraft the nuns forbade, spells done with sacred tools, the conjuring power of our hips. But I too bought a mood ring at the mall. On my finger, it turned from black to green and sometimes to orange when my hands filled with hot desire. A witch brings change to the seen world using unseen forces. A witch gestures through the veil between worlds. Wearing the ring, I saw my thoughts on my hand. This is how I learned I wanted witchcraft, by paying for something cheap. Now 33, I have crystals scavenged from places unknown and unimaginable after the rocks are tumbled, polished, and turned into tiny vessels to hold wishes and dread. The stones, I know, belong to somebody's homeland. I worried about my crystals long before I read Emily Atkins's piece for the New Republic, which asks the reader, do you know where your healing crystals come from? In the article, business owner Julie Abuzaloff says that crystal sourcing is unclear in part because of the deep psychological construct of the mining industry, where everything is a little bit hidden. I know about hidden things, gathering locations, fishing spots, what happens in some companies. Once I went with my aunties to pick huckleberries on the mountain, where aunties have picked since the beginning of time, but we got nearly nothing because we were late in the season and the white people were early. If you let whiteness in, it takes you for everything you've got. Not long ago, the witches got upset on the internet. Sephora was going to sell a starter witch kit, tarot cards, sage, rose quartz, perfume, and the witches thought it was wrong for the makeup store to peddle spiritual tools alongside poor refiners. As a Native woman and an occult enthusiast, I had an opinion. I had an opinion about a Macklemore video interview in which a non-Native astrologer teaches him to burn white sage, a traditional medicine for California Native peoples. In the wild, it's threatened by non-Native overharvesting. I had an opinion when I saw an Instagram-promoted post featuring a pentagram dream catcher beside the text of a good luck spell and tagged #witch, #Wicca, and anything close. I kept those opinions to myself. Better to leave the critiques to people who don't buy candles from stores where non-Native people sell sage bundles, I thought. The first time I browsed a magic store, I saw shelves of sage and cedar shrink-wrapped against abalone shells. And even though I recoiled, I still exchanged my money for a divination deck. I've been looking the other way ever since. As a child, I read picture books about girl witches. As a preteen, hoping to find a way to make magic in isolation, I took to the still adolescent World Wide Web, where glimmering angel fire websites warned me that I had better not try anything without a coven. In my heavily Catholic forest and farmland slice of New Jersey, I never did find one. The authors of those prescriptions were Wiccans, and there was no way into their closed world, even through hyperlinks. A few years ago, I decided the white Wiccans of the web were wrong. I could go it alone and access the power. I needed to believe that things happened for a reason. I had witch friends. Even my therapist seemed to be witch adjacent. Now that witchcraft is sold as self-help and occult aesthetics inspire Starbucks drinks, hardly anyone talks about covens or other rules. A witch only needs the right look, the right stuff, the right feelings. I look the part, like a Hollywood witch, dark-haired and pale-skinned because of my European ancestry. And I'm into the Instagram witch lifestyle. Black dresses, lavender baths, affirmations about being worthy of things. But I don't like calling myself a witch. I don't want to be seen as following a fad, and I don't want the white witches I resemble to take my presence in their spaces as permission for theft. Really, I just want a version of the occult that isn't built on plunder, but I suspect that if we could excise the stolen pieces, there would be nothing left. I've executed successful bindings against men I feared. I've cast spells I probably shouldn't have with hair and spit. I play fast and loose, sifting through websites for formulas, but rarely willing to follow the steps. Even when the spells work, I feel like an amateur and an interloper. But the white women who dominate the online esoteric marketplace cannot hoard this power. When I was 13 and desperate for magic, I hadn't yet read Leslie Marmon Silko's Storyteller. Quote, "The world was already complete, even without white people. There was everything, including witchery." I am Cowlitz. My people are indigenous to what is currently southwestern Washington. I was born in New Jersey, lived in Washington and Coast Salish territory to the north of my homeland from 2007 to 2017, and now live in Ohio. In Washington, I was introduced to indigenous spiritual practices that I will not describe here. Know only that my physical husk was wilting around my incapacitated spirit. I had been reading tarot and trying out spells for a few months, but the occult was not enough. Native friends taught me to maintain relationships with ancestors and place spirits. I stopped drinking the alcohol that made my insides bleed. Something was lodged in there, clawing. Today, I feel it holding my lungs in its fists, and I can't even sob hard enough to cry it out. When I felt myself shredded, I used to wade into Lake Washington, stand on a ledge of land overlooking the bay, or walk through the strip of urban forest where cedars shaded Salal. The land put me back together. In Ohio, the land and I talk like strangers. I'm running out of medicines, down to 2 dwindling bundles of sage, a couple of sweetgrass braids, and a charred bit of juniper that won't even light. I know who gathered these. Magic stores sell them, but I don't know where they acquire them, so I won't buy them. Witches of the internet photograph sage bundles against bright white backgrounds and market it as a space-clearing incense. To me, the medicines have nothing to do with witchcraft, except that I use both to speak to spirits. I am not a medicine woman or a healer. I'm a person with an internet connection and a credit card I can use to buy candles and charmed oils to cast the kind of spell that might rip a little hole in the universe, the kind I might wish I could take back once it's done, the only kind I believe in. If I don't follow the spells as written, am I really a witch? The truth is, I'm not a witch, exactly. I'm a person with prayers, a person who believes in spirits and plays with fire. I am still alive and ambulatory after having been raped more times than I can recall, threatened with a knife and a gun, smothered, choked, held down, and stalked over the course of several years and at the hands of more than several men. I've wrapped my arms around men who told me I should fear them or told me I had nothing to fear. I've been alone, certain that no good man would waste his life with the rotting apple core of me. When I got sober, my intuition sharpened, and my judgment is good enough that I haven't been in a relationship with a dangerous man in years. But I'm not safe from strangers. The man who grabbed my thigh on the sidewalk, the guys who followed me in and out of every restaurant I speed walked into to try to lose them. The man working on my house who pointed to my drill and growled, "I love a woman with her own tools." Witches say, trust the universe, trust the divine. But that's hard when I'm at the gym, lifting weights under a television that can't be turned off or muted, forced to either listen to today's American rape takes or leave and quit making myself strong. I am subject to the wants of a country conjured up by invaders who raped, maimed, and killed until they could settle their dream like a film over the land that held the treasure they wanted. Every day, the universe reminds me that yes, I am safe now, but I am in America. I could be gouged out again. I live under the tyrannical rule of my PTSD triggers. My worst panic comes by way of quiet and calm because it's always quiet before the palm covers my mouth or the hand grabs my thigh or the footsteps begin to trail me. The state of nothing really going on is a cavity that wants to be filled. I cannot control this world. I shut my eyes, try to cry or not cry, and ask benevolent spirits for intercession. I try to make my body solid so the spirits will know that I believe it's worth protecting, even if I'm not sure that's true. In her book, As We Have Always Done, Indigenous Freedom Through Radical Resistance, Leanne Simpson writes that when the colonizers, white men without available white women, first encroached upon so-called North America, they saw Indigenous women as sexual outlets. Indigenous women's sexual autonomy was thus considered threatening. This isn't over yet. Quote, colonizers want land, but Indigenous bodies forming nations are in the way because they have a strong attachment to land and because they replicate indigeneity. And the colonizers, quote, see Indigenous women's and girls' bodies as the bodies that reproduce nations. The results are embedded in so many of us, quote, the attack on our bodies, minds, and spirits, and the intimate trauma this encodes is how dispossession is maintained. After moving to Ohio, I tried to find a therapist right away, but gave up after a half dozen responded that they weren't accepting new patients. Years of weekly therapy had made me feel solid enough that I decided to wait. 10 months later, when my PTSD episodes returned, I made more inquiries. I got on a wait list for a therapist, and 2 months after that, on another wait list. In early September, I finally had an appointment and was asked to complete a behavioral health questionnaire. Have you ever believed that someone was reading your mind or could hear your thoughts, or that you could actually read someone's mind or hear what another person was thinking? Yes. In the office, I spent an hour trying to rush through the recounting of every bad thing. Do you ever hear or see or feel things that aren't real? The therapist asked. I hedged. What is real anyway? But she pushed. I told her that sometimes when I'm trying to fall asleep, I feel fingers in my hair. I didn't tell her I've assumed this is either a ghost or an astral projection. In her pause, I recalled that just a few moments before I'd revealed that I was first raped after being roused from sleep. Years later, I woke up in the middle of the night to find my then-boyfriend's hand pressing my nose and mouth shut. You've experienced an incredible amount of trauma, my therapist said. Too much for her. She found me someone else, whose first available appointment was a month out. I'm still waiting. Today, I cried so hard I thought the capillaries around my eyes might burst again, like a baby's, like they have before. In the mirror, only my dead old face. For my moods, I have tried Lexapro, Seroquel, lithium, Lamictal, Wellbutrin, Zoloft, Celexa, Ativan, Klonopin, and Abilify. For my night fear, I've tried L-theanine, melatonin, tryptophan, magnesium, Benadryl, and dropperfuls of herbal tinctures. 10 years of antipsychotics prescribed by a psychiatrist who diagnosed me with bipolar disorder didn't work. Even whiskey didn't always work, unless I drank so much of it that the physical terrors grabbed up all my attention and I ended up with chin hooked onto the inner rim of the toilet bowl. In 2015, after a few months of sobriety, an addiction-focused psychiatrist changed my diagnosis to alcohol use disorder in full sustained remission and post-traumatic stress disorder. He told me it was unlikely that I had ever been bipolar. My medications didn't fit my new diagnosis, so he helped me taper off them. The PTSD determination frightened me. My triggers and traumas had been allowed to multiply unchecked, making for a hefty pile of kindling that would catch fire from the smallest sparks. A boyfriend's irritated silence, a stranger's shouting from down the street. My challenge would be to learn through therapy to function in a world full of reminders that I would probably be harmed again. Simpson writes, quote, "I don't necessarily want to heal because I am not damaged or diseased or unhealthy. My response to the intergenerational trauma of settler colonial violence is correct and strong and vital. I want to have processed hurt and pain to the point where I can speak back to those words and harness the power of fear, hatred, and love into sustained mobilization, to the point where they don't control me, but they are experiences I can draw on when it is useful to do so. When I choose, anoint, and burn a candle with my prayers scratched into the wax, when I make my prayers material, I can convince myself that I can grab onto a power that will carry me through this life. I know how to show the spirits that I am here through the light of my fire, because we have always used fire to smoke fish, burn cedar boughs, turn prairie brush to ash so the camas or huckleberries can grow stronger. I choose witchcraft. I choose to cast spells. Because I have given up my ability to touch a western red cedar on a daily basis. Because I have seen my binding work on a dangerous man. Because I am alone and low on hope sometimes. Today, sludgy with dread, I am preparing to get my weekly allergy shot. I realize I've forgotten to take the little pill meant to lessen my chances of going into anaphylaxis. This happened to me 2 months ago. After the allergen injection, my face got hot and the oxygen supply to my brain decreased, which made me feel faint. That's when I ate a fruit leather, in case I was hungry. It didn't help, so I looked up anaphylaxis on WebMD. Then my arms felt nearly too weighted down to use the phone, so I stood and told the receptionist, "Nurse." Then I was in a reclining chair, nurses and doctors all around me, blood pressure cuff on one arm, pulse taker on a finger, EpiPen in my thigh. They say you're supposed to sense doom when anaphylaxis hits, but I always sense doom. When my body reacted, I only felt wonder that I could reroute its energy and keep me alive. My body pulled blood from the limbs and head, quaked with uterine cramps as though I was menstruating, and sent little bolts of lightning to the soles of my feet. I felt so hot and alive in the inches of space from death. Today, I find myself thinking that I wouldn't mind it happening again. This is a bad thought. I call the therapist's office to ask for an earlier appointment. No luck. I ask the scheduler, I guess there's no, urgent care for mental health, right? The emergency room, she says. I go up to my magic place in the attic and wipe down my altar. Maybe it's an altar, maybe it's just the surface of my candles and my shelves full of smoldering sage. Maybe it's a wooden toy oven I found in the garage of my last Seattle apartment building, abandoned by some child who outgrew it. I want to outgrow something. I want to ungrow back into the child who truly believed in magic. I Google spells to take the PTSD out of me. But is that what I want? To stop my brain from thrashing against the wickedness America stuffed inside? I need to get better, and I'm out of ideas. I arrange the candles and I pray. Tonight, I'm at a magic store I visited for the first time yesterday, when I needed a small stone to hold in my shaking hand. The woman who helped me said to come back the next day for a women's spiritual circle. Suggested donation, $3. I found exactly $3 in my wallet today. This store, a tight space with a busy back room, feels so far from the glitter of the crystals in my Instagram feed. These women, not all of whom are white, don't call themselves witches. In the circle, we speak into a bucket and cough out our fears, and then a bundle of burning plants, nothing I recognize, is lit. I've been told that smudging is more than just the touching of flame to dried plants and getting close to the smoke. It's a piece of a cosmology, not teachable through a YouTube video. I don't know where these plants lived. I don't know who harvested them, or whether those people gave anything to the land in return. I don't know what I can do to reciprocate the healing the plants are offering tonight. All I can do is promise these plants that if I get well, I will try to figure it out. I speak every fear into the bucket, that I am not safe, that I am too wounded to be anything but a burden, that the best of me has been taken, the rest of me left to grope for a calm that might never be anything but potential space for danger, that the spirits are indifferent to me or don't exist at all. I speak until I feel that I'm through, and then I cough from the base of my body. I'm not healed, but I feel better. It's dark when I walk to my car. A white man approaches me, silent and high. When I pass him, he turns and he follows. My 9th grade writing teacher taught me that when I was afraid, I could make my aura grow so that everyone would stay away. A psychic once told me that my aura was dark, like a mood ring on a corpse. I have nothing now but my big aura, my fistful of keys, and my throat that still knows how to scream because no man has succeeded in closing it. If I am going to die, I want to fight. I've been fighting the colonizers' whispers that I'm not wanted here, not worthy of protection, nothing but a body to be pummeled and played with and threatened into submission. I have not died yet. My whole body is afire, lit back when the world was complete, never extinguished by anybody. Thank you so much.
I'm going to have to take questions from you guys in a minute, but I just want to say that the sign language interpreters today did really great work with really challenging material. So we've got about 20 minutes, and if you want to ask questions, she'll.
Yes.
How long did it take for you to get comfortable with writing such personal material?
Oh. How long did it take me to get comfortable with writing such personal material? That's a good question. You know, it took me a long time. I started writing when I was, a little kid. And when I was a preteen, I wrote song lyrics, super bad. Things like, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. It's not an option, it's a must. I was raised Catholic. So, I was writing and then writing poems that were fine. They were not about me at all. I wrote fiction for a while, and it wasn't until I was, 22 that I started writing nonfiction. And I started with deeply personal essays. So I think I had to get through a bunch of iterations of my writer self before I was able to write personal material and write about myself. And even then, I was starting out writing somewhat experimental things, and so I just felt like nobody's ever going to read this. There's no way anybody will ever read this. I can just say whatever I want. Now it's all in a book that my parents can read. It's, hard to get comfortable with. So, I've never been truly comfortable writing about myself, but it's like a terrible compulsion. Other questions? Yes.
How did you first get into personal essays as a writer?
The question was, how did I first get into personal essays as a type of writing? My first personal essay I wrote was in college. I believe it was my senior year of college. I was in a cultural anthropology class on like Native Americans generally. I think I was the only Native person in the room. The professor was white. Nobody else was Native. And for our final project, we could make a creative project. So like a lot of people made these like super insulting projects. It was like terrible, like cooking demonstrations that were like just really bad, and posters. I mean, we weren't taught super well in that class, so I can't really blame the students totally, but I decided I would write a personal essay about my family and myself and what it was to be Native to me. And that ended up in a much different form in my book, In My Body is a Book of Rules. There's these interchapters called A Cascade Autobiography that appear every so often in the book. So that started as my senior year cultural anthropology class final project. Then when I went to grad school, I was working with somebody who was a personal essayist and encouraged me to do it. And I think I thought, I'm 22, there is nothing important about me, nothing interesting has ever happened to me. My professor was like, you are important, your stories are interesting, and more importantly, you can use form to do something really special with this. So that's when I really got started writing nonfiction and didn't look back. Other questions? Yes.
Has writing your stories helped you heal from your past experiences, and if it is, how has it helped?
What's the last part of the question?
If it has been healing, how has that process been?
Yeah, so the question is about how has writing been healing for me. For a long time, I thought therapy is therapy, writing is writing, they're separate. Writing is not therapeutic, it's like, professional. And then, in 2015, 2016, when I was, as I read to you, I had my bipolar diagnosis reversed through seeing a new psychiatrist and talking to him for hours. And he said, well, because your PTSD has gone untreated for so long, your triggers are just like gone wild. It's real bad. But the good thing is that you've been writing about it because you've been able to take control of the narrative, take control of the story, and take ownership over it. You would be so much worse off if you didn't. So that was a very interesting thing for me to hear. Now, I just don't feel totally sure about what the therapeutic effects are of writing. Because that last piece I read to you, when I was writing it, I was in a really bad place, obviously, but I think writing kind of made me feel worse. It sort of like tore me open and had me just like this big gaping wound, but there wasn't like the therapeutic intervention to actually like heal me. So I don't know. But I think it has helped to be able to make sense of things in a way I can't just by thinking. I can't just by talking to people. I can't in therapy. In therapy, I do different things. By talking to friends, I do different things. But the writing process just gets me to a kind of knowledge and insight that I can't get anywhere else. So I think it has been helpful. I'm glad I'm in therapy. I'm glad I finally found a therapist in Ohio. So that I can while I'm doing this processing, I can have someone out there who can help me not be an open wound all the time. But yeah, I think it's powerful to be able to make meaning out of something terrible. Yes.
It's really good stuff. I guess people answering. Did you happen to ever receive criticism or backlash when you wrote about the medical community or any other communities that you're addresses? And if so, did it inform your writing? Or how did it inform your writing?
The question was about backlash from the medical community. No, I never got any backlash. You can if you have criticism, I'd be happy to hear it afterward. I'm very curious, nobody, I've received very little kind of published criticism of my work, which, in a way I'm lucky, but I also, often use that criticism to fuel further writing, because I'm just like super angry and like, to hell with that person who criticized my book. Let me like double down on that in my next book and write a whole book about that thing you didn't like. That's how Starvation Mode came about, because of a bad review of my first book. So no, I haven't received any backlash from the medical community. I think, like, well, one thing that I have been worried about that didn't seem to come about, I was thinking, like, My Body is a Book of Rules is all about being bipolar and being medicated for bipolar disorder. And then, like, psych, it didn't happen. I wasn't bipolar. I was really, I didn't tell anybody publicly until this essay came out in Guernica last month. So this was something for years that I knew and couldn't talk about in public, because I had made a commitment. I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to talk about it at Q&As or in public, in any forum, until I had written about it, until I, had just like really formed that narrative for myself and for others, so that it would be, so it would be solidified and not just kind of like passed around. And so I was worried about how people were going to react to that news, but no, I haven't gotten any backlash. I shouldn't be like, I should be knocking on wood. There's no wood here, but I should be knocking on wood because I want everybody to like me and my stuff. Other questions? Yes. Oh yeah, the question is like, if I feel pressure to be representative of Indigenous writers, I certainly don't want to be, like held up as the only one. There have been like, problems in Native literature because of the publishing industry's desire to have there be one. But I really recognize that when I am writing, I am creating representations, and that, there is a danger that people will take what I write and, do what they will with it. I'm not in control. So, I do try to be really thoughtful to have, I have other Native writers read my work now, and before it gets published, like the last essay I read, I definitely take the responsibility seriously. And something that is also really important to me is, lifting up other Native writers so that none of us is just, held up by the industry as the only one or one of a few. I want so many of us to have the opportunity to, to have our work out in the world, and to, to show readers that we're all super different from one another, and no one of us is, writing the Native experience with capital T and E, Yes.
You just reminded me that last year you made an epic Twitter thread of honoring Native writers who you thought were worthy of praise.
Yeah.
And it got passed around a lot by sort of literary Twitter. But it made me want to ask you, can you talk about how social media has been a tool in your creative and professional life?
Ooh, how social media has been a tool in my creative and professional life. It's kind of hard to answer because I'm on Twitter way too much, probably, but I do find it really useful for connecting with people, and in where I live in Ohio, I love it. The only thing that has not been super comfortable is not being around a lot of other Native folks, and so I definitely use it to connect with other Native writers and scholars. And so I think that's been a really great use for me. And getting to tweet that big thread of books by Native writers I love, or that I haven't read, or just like anything, just like, buy like books that are worthy of attention. I think that was a really nice thing to be able to do. I felt like I could make a contribution at a time when people were really looking for alternatives to Sherman Alexie to put on their syllabi and to, just to read. And so I, said like, well, this is what I am an expert in, actually. I have expertise in something. Let me tweet it out to you. So that was really nice. I know that, some friends told me that they saw, people did like direct orders for their books from that and things like that. So that was really nice. I mean, I feel like you can like talk negatively all you want about Twitter. It's terrible. It's like a hell pit and all of that. But at the same time, I feel like it has been a place where, strangely enough, I have learned to be okay with being myself a lot more and being just like saying things that are on my mind and kind of like developing a voice in a really weird way. I think that Twitter has helped me like find my voice in a new way. I think in the Book of Rules, now I look back at it and I see that it was like the voice in that book is highly manipulated. And it's me, of course, but I think that as I've been working on white magic, at the same time I'm like tweeting my like very dull thoughts. And I don't know, it hasn't, like, I have purpose and intention when I do it. I'm trying to, really work with voice and I guess persona in a way, but like persona that's actually conflated with my actual self. I might be getting off into territory that's not making a whole lot of sense, but I'm going to try to keep going. Like, with my first book, I really was influenced by like Philip Lopate and the idea of turning oneself into a character. I was trying to create this narrator self that could stand apart from me, that was like inspired by me and was me in a way, but it was a separate entity. And I don't really like that anymore. I want my writer persona, my narrator, to be as close to me as possible. I just feel like my writing is just better that way. And so I think like, I can't write every day. I'm writing about trauma, it'd kill me. And I'm like busy. I have like a full-time job now, which is a whole other thing. It's like, wow. But, but like I get to work with that voice every day. So I've done things on Twitter like, I can't believe how much I'm talking about Twitter. It's terrible. My students would tell you, like, this is so typical. Elissa talks about Twitter all the time. But, a few months ago, I went to a conference for magicians and, like, used Twitter as a way to like, actually essay in real time. And I had been thinking a lot about the essay as an intuitive process and a sort of mystical, magical process in some ways. I start out with something, and I don't know where I'm going to go. And just through trusting myself to get somewhere, I get somewhere. And so I started by kind of just like tweeting like, oh my God, I'm at a conference for magicians. What am I doing? I'm not a magician, by the way. Like, I don't know anything about magic. But I was writing about magicians in my research. So, I used Twitter to just kind of like see where I could essay into, knowing that I wasn't going to be able to revise, that it was just going to happen. I was just threading into wherever. So I think it's a really interesting experimental tool for me in my writing. It's an interesting social tool. It's a great way to just like connect with people when I am feeling underwater with my, with all my reading and my job and all of that. So I think, and I've found so many writer friends through it that I wouldn't have otherwise.
We have time for one more.
Go ahead.
Okay. So in your personal essays, or writing art, do you leave things out to connect people in your life, like the real people who are there, or?
Oh yeah, and I won't tell you what because I've left it out. But yeah, I leave so much out of my essays,
How do you choose that? Like,
well, how do I explain this without telling you what I've left out? In first drafts, I'll put a lot of stuff in. I won't put everything in because I know there's no point. There's some things I'm never going to write about, even after people are dead, probably. There's just no need. But I kind of like put a lot into first drafts, and then in later drafts, I think like, okay, how will I actually feel if this is in the world? How will I actually feel exposing myself or someone else? And I think like just from a craft standpoint, there's like a lot of stuff that we often put in our first drafts just for texture, just, because we want to put in details. That's what we do as writers. We're like detail machines. And, and I've looked back, after doing revisions for craft and all of that, I do another look through and I see, like, do I really need to put in this memory about this friend? Because it's not really serving the essay. It's just kind of making him look bad, and he's real, and he'll read it, and he won't like it. So, I try to scale back as much as I can, but I don't know how it's a very imperfect process. I think that's the hardest thing one of the hardest things about teaching for me is, talking to my students about real life implications of essays, because there's no formula for it. Thank you so much for your questions and your attention.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.